Mr. Dennis J. Bowers was born on July 21, 1944 in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. Mr. Bowers' father, Alvin J. Bowers, worked in a steel mill, and his mother, Gracie Bowers, worked in a sewing mill. He had 3 older sisters as well. Mr. Bowers went to Hamburg Area High School and graduated in the class of 1962. During his summers, he worked in a hosiery mill hauling and shipping merchandise.
Then, on August 27, 1962, Mr. Bowers enlisted in the Air Force with 2 friends. He personally was leaning towards the Army, but all 3 friends agreed on joining the Air Force together. Bowers said, "It was something I always wanted to do. I just always believed in the military, and I always looked up to those who had served." He arrived at basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, soon after enlistment. Basic training was an eye-opening experience for Mr. Bowers. He was forced to do things that his mother once did for him, such as sewing and washing clothing. In basic training, they went through physically intense drills, such as obstacle courses, ropes courses, across lakes, etc. He remembers the first day of basic training very vividly. His sergeant screamed at them and marched them long hours, working them hard the whole day.
Basic training was an eye-opener because now you weren't home, you didn't have your mother to do things for you.
After basic training, he was assigned to the Strategic Air Command Base, Pease Air Force Base, outside of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. At Pease Air Force Base, he received clearance and on-the-job training to become an air police security guard. The job itself was guarding planes, B-47 bombers, and jets loaded with nuclear bombs. The guard details included making sure only people with clearance could enter the station, as well as patrolling the perimeter. One day while guarding the planes, bombs, and jets, Mr. Bowers and the other men were having a good time and playing cards on one of the bed of the trucks. They told another airman to be sure the radios were on in case the sergeants needed to communicate with them. However, the young airman forgot. An hour or 2 later, a friend of theirs came speeding over to them in one of the trucks and told them to get moving, and that the sergeant has been calling them for a while now. This was a funny moment that Mr. Bowers will always remember. Luckily, he didn't get into too much trouble. While still at Pease, he later was put on a strike team. It was a group of 3 armed men who drove around the flight line to ensure everything was okay. While being stationed on Pease Air Force Base, he was assigned to Lockbourne Air Force Base in Lockbourne, Ohio for temporary duty. There he remained as an air police security guard for 3 months before being reassigned to Pease.
While in the service, he married his wife, Louise Bowers, on November 20th, 1965. They wrote to each other every day since there was no such thing as texting throughout.
So we weren't talking for a while, and my wife said to me, what are we going to talk about the rest of our life? I said, I think we'll think of something, and it's over 50 years, so I think we thought of something to talk about.
Throughout his service, he had time to form strong bonds with his flight. His flight was different from many due to the fact that it was racially diverse, but there was no prejudice towards the fellow members, unlike many other flights on his base. With his flight, they had many comedic memories, such as one airman turning on his shower to keep the room warm with the steam, but then waking up with icicles covering the walls. However, even though Mr. Bowers did not see any real battle, the cost of war was all too real to the flight. The one airman's brother had died in the submarine sinking of the USS Thresher during the Vietnam War. Even though he had no connection to the man in the flight who had suffered the tragedy, it affected all the men since they were one large family.
Mr. Bowers says the most memorable moment of his military career was the day John F. Kennedy was assassinated. He was with the sergeant when they received a call saying the president was shot, and Mr. Bowers was to alert the base of the news. He remembers how sad of a day it was, especially when he received orders to tell everyone that the president was not only shot, but was officially dead. The air police security team was on high alert. Everyone had to be checked, and all the teams were deployed around the base to ensure the safety of the base. It was a stressful day as well, Mr. Bowers recalled. No one knew if it was a conspiracy or terrorist attack that could put all the military bases in danger, or if it was just a single event occurrence. After the base was given an all clear, most men were released to have a 3-day break. Mr. Bowers remembers completely watching the funeral of the beloved president and a little while later seeing Lee Harvey Oswald being shot while eating lunch and watching TV at home.
In May, Mr. Bowers was granted a 3-month early out in order to pursue college at Kutztown University. So on May 31st, 1966, he said goodbye to Pease Air Force Base and his Air Force career and flew home to Hamburg, Pennsylvania. Unlike most veterans during the Vietnam time period, Mr. Bowers was not singled out or treated harshly by people who opposed the war. He was welcomed home by his family and friends and was relieved to finally be with his wife again. After he arrived home, he began his college career and pursued his dream of being a history teacher. For Mr. Bowers, the transition from military to civilian life was easy. Making the transition from military to student life was hard. Once he graduated from Kutztown University, he was offered a teaching position as a 5th grade teacher at Hamburg Area Elementary School. He taught there for 28 years before retiring. Throughout his time of service, he earned the Expert Shooting Medal and the Good Conduct Medal. He expressed his opinion on how he encourages everyone that is able to join the military to do so. He accredits the military with helping him grow into the person he is today. He is a member of the American Legion, but not necessarily associated with any veterans organizations. He was happy that he had the opportunity to enter the Air Force and the military overall. It allowed him to pick a career in the military that was perfect for him. Mr. Bowers now has 2 daughters and 4 wonderful grandchildren and lives on a small farm in Hamburg, Pennsylvania.